The Global Sumud Flotilla sails toward Gaza. But will it break the blockade or endure a dangerous, potentially deadly confrontation? Armed with aid and a message of solidarity, almost 50 vessels with 150 passengers have dared to challenge Israel's assault on Gaza. So will they succeed? I'm Andrea Sankey, and today's newsmaker is the Global Sumud Flotilla. Well, in Arabic, Sumud means steadfast perseverance, and that is exactly what the Global Sumud Flotilla will need if it hopes to break the blockade on Gaza. Though it is an aid flotilla, few expect it to be able to deliver the humanitarian cargo it's carrying. So at the very least, it will stage a show of solidarity with Gazans under siege. But should we be prepared for something far more frightening, similar to what aid workers faced when Israeli forces killed 9 volunteers upon storming the Mavi Marmara? That was one vessel in 2010. Now there are more than 50 approaching an all-out war on Gaza. So how far could Israel go to stop it? And what, if any, would be the consequences? Here's a look.
Several dozen boats and more than 300 people sailing across the Mediterranean with the hope, however small, of reaching Gaza. The convoy, named the Sumud Flotilla, from the Arabic word meaning perseverance or steadfastness, is approximately halfway there on its journey eastwards. Many of the vessels departed together on Monday from Tunisia, following long delays and even 2 separate attacks from suspected drones in Tunisian waters.
Our humanitarian, non-violent solidarity mission to Gaza to break the siege and to create a humanitarian corridor was attacked once again. Unfortunately, we've seen that the drones come, they drop their incendiary devices, and they try to stop our mission. Hopefully, once again, there was no structural damage to our boat. Once again, nobody on the ship got severely wounded.
The fleet, comprising private, unarmed civilian boats, brings together what they describe as ordinary people who believe in human dignity and non-violent action. They also say they are independent, international, and not affiliated with any government or political party.
So our aim is to, as a big fleet, manage to break the siege that's imposed by Israel and to open a humanitarian corridor for humanitarian aid into Gaza. We want to put pressure on our own governments to also stop collaborating with Israel and stop being a part of this genocide.
But chances of success are slim. Almost every single humanitarian convoy on the sea headed for Gaza for years have been stopped by Israeli forces. Earlier this year, Freedom Flotilla coalition vessels Conscience, Madeleine and Handallah separately tried to break the blockade. All 3 failed, intercepted by Israeli forces in international waters, an alleged maritime law violation. Activists were subjected to beatings, kidnapped, jailed, interrogated, and then deported from Israel. In 2010, a raid by Israeli forces boarded the largest vessel in a small flotilla. 9 volunteers aboard the Turkish vessel Mavi Marmara were killed. 8 were Turkish. The 9th victim was a Turkish-American dual citizen. The Sumud Flotilla is currently located mostly near Sicily. As it navigates across the sea, ministers of 16 nations have issued a joint statement reminding Israel that it will be held accountable for any violation of international law or the human rights of participants in the flotilla, including attacks on the vessels in international waters or illegal detention.
What we are claiming to do is to act in line with international law. We are hearing the calls from Palestinians who are urging the people of the world to step up, to end our complicity, and we are doing a very small part of that, the bare minimum, to act to uphold international law, human rights.
On Tuesday, an independent report from senior independent rights investigators appointed by the Human Rights Council concluded that Israel's actions in Gaza constitute genocide. Accusations Tel Aviv denies. Yet, more than 65,000 Palestinians have now been killed in Israel's siege, and almost 10% of the territory's population has been killed or wounded. The flotilla hopes to highlight the Gazan struggle and bring aid to a desperate population. But that aid and assistance might only be a few drops in an entire ocean, if it even makes landfall at all.
Well, joining me now to talk more about the impact of the Global Sumud Flotilla and what dangers it may face are, from the Sicilian coast, emergency doctor and Global Sumud Flotilla participant Dr. James Smith; from Montevideo, Uruguay, member of the Knesset with the Democratic Front for Peace and Equality Coalition, Ofer Kasif; and from Exeter, UK, Gazan journalist Jehan Al-Farah. Thank you all so much for being with me. James, I'll start with you because you have been on the ship. From what I can see, you're on it now. Tell me, first, if you can, a little bit about the atmosphere. I'm sure there is a lot of camaraderie, but how much do people actually fear what could happen? You have to be remarkably brave to really undertake this mission right now, do you not?
I wish I could show you through the hatch above me, but there are 29 vessels as part of the flotilla that we're moving with currently. That number will increase to approximately 50 shortly as we meet more vessels that have departed from Italy. We expect that as the flotilla moves through the central Mediterranean, that number will increase further with more boats from Greece and potentially other countries. The atmosphere is good. People are, of course, determined. We have received a lot of support, particularly when the boats had to stop to undergo sort of technical checks in Tunisia. Thousands of people coming out to greet the flotilla and to provide support in different forms. That being said, as you've mentioned, Andrea, I mean, of course, people are fearful. This is not the first flotilla to attempt to break Israel's illegal siege. We know how Israel has historically responded to such efforts, and we also know how Israel has responded to the broader Palestine solidarity movement, attempting to quash and to silence people who express solidarity with Palestine and the Palestinian people the world over. So indeed, there is fear, and that is a justifiable and an evidenced fear, particularly for the flotilla, given that Israel has responded particularly violently in the past in response to previous attempts to break the siege.
Yeah. In previous attempts to break the siege, before this, I mean, just brazen, I don't have a better word, assault on Gaza even started. So seeing how Israel has been given license to go to absolute extremes with no consequences, yeah, it remains to be seen how they will respond to this flotilla getting closer to the coast in Gaza. Jehan, though, unlike some of the missions prior to this, I mean, for example, Greta Thunberg's last mission, even the Mavi Marmara, you've said that the difference this time is sheer size. We've got more than 50 vessels. So how do you see that potentially changing the end result this time?
Well, look, first of all, before talking about the end result, I think one of the main objectives of the flotilla is not only to reach Gaza, which obviously would be a great thing, but it's a signal to the governments, the world governments. You know, when governments fail to act, ordinary people are showing that they will step in. This flotilla is essentially democracy from below, because representative democracy hasn't worked. It's a race against time, you know, because a full-blown genocide continues to unfold. As you said, whereas Greta's mission before was a single high-profile boat, this time it's a whole fleet, essentially. It's the largest, most coordinated civilian effort yet to challenge Israel's blockade by sea. It involves dozens of vessels. It involves hundreds of people and participants from across the world and from across all walks of life, basically. You've got ordinary people, but you've also got parliamentarians, trade unionists, artists, and even survivors of other struggles. And compared to previous attempts, the sheer scale makes this a much greater challenge for Israel to confront, in international waters. They are carrying humanitarian supplies, but, as I said, it's also a message of sumud, of steadfastness in the face of all of these overwhelming odds. And it's about reminding governments that the people will act.
Okay. Let me ask Ofer, because there are some that complain that this isn't money well spent, that these undertakings can be very expensive and have, not maximum effect. So why do you think efforts like this flotilla actually do matter so much?
Well, they do matter first and foremost, as it was said before, because this is a democracy from below, because this is a popular struggle against an ongoing genocide, atrocities, ethnic cleansing, and some other crimes against humanity and war crimes that Israel has been launching against the Palestinian people as a whole, by the way, not only in Gaza, primarily in Gaza, but also in the West Bank, as well as against the 21% of the Palestinian citizens within Israel. So in my view, these flotillas is a massive symbol of struggle against atrocities and against injustice, to say the least. In that sense, and I want to use this as possibility to salute all those who take place in these flotillas. And I hope they succeed to reach the coast of Gaza. I'm afraid they won't, but the very endeavor in itself is an immense success, and I salute them.
Yeah, you're afraid they won't arrive, though. I mean, how do you see that playing out? Where would they effectively be stopped? Do you fear it will be by brute force? Or will there be simpler, naval blockades put in place that they just can't pass, and it will just fade away in that sense?
Well, unfortunately, we know that Israel is probably the world champion in violating sovereignty. We saw Israel violating the sovereignty of many countries, Lebanon, Syria, Iran, Yemen, and Tunisia lately, and obviously the right of the Palestinian people to self-determination. So why shouldn't they do the same and violating the sovereignty of other countries by invading by drones or any other means to stop the flotilla? So I'm afraid that the government of Israel will try to use force one way or another. And I hope, of course, they won't, and that they won't succeed. It's very important to mention that this flotilla is not only legitimate, it is a must. And one of the things that makes this endeavor so powerful is that it is not violent. This is an unviolent initiative. And because of that, on top of other things that were said and should be said, this is so welcome. And I wish their luck and success.
Yeah. Quickly, Ofer, you're actually participating in the flotilla, even from Uruguay, in your own way. I just want you to tell us a little bit about what you're doing right now, because you've been on almost a global tour to spread the very message that the Global Sumud Flotilla is trying to spread.
First and foremost, my comrades and I in the Democratic Front for Peace and Equality, which is based on the Communist Party of Israel, and of course we are part of a wider coalition within Israel. We've been against this genocide from the very beginning. I want everybody to remember that some of my comrades at the Knesset and I myself were suspended time and time again because we opened our mouth loudly against the atrocities. I personally, in the last 2 years, was suspended for almost one entire year altogether, simply because I acted and spoke against the genocide, which I shall continue, whatever the price is. So what I've been doing now, as the Knesset is in recess, I've been in many meetings with good people in Europe, France, and Italy. I shall be in Spain as well. And I'm just about to attend the Partido Trabajo seminar in Mexico City next week. And all over the place, I'm trying to address different people and to tell them that our struggle, which is a Palestinian-Israeli struggle together, I want to emphasize, there's no conflict between Israelis and Palestinians, Arabs and Jews. There is a conflict between those who do evil and those who seek justice. I'm proud to be with other Jews, Israelis, Palestinians, internationals, to be with those who seek justice in struggling against the atrocities and those who do evil. And I'm trying to spread the word across the globe. This is our obligation, not only of our right. And this is the interest of all the peoples, including the Israeli people. I want to be very clear. It's not against the people of Israel. It is for all the peoples, the arch enemy of the people of Israel, obviously of the Palestinians, is the Israeli government.
Yeah, James, it must be good to hear that kind of, solidarity spoken from the other side of the planet right now. And as Ofer was saying, it's so important that this is actually a peaceful endeavor. Still, though, what do you imagine would actually change the equation here? Because peaceful efforts seem to go unheard by Israel. Statements and condemnation make no difference. And anything else seems to spark violent backlash. So, what makes you want to keep driving this effort? Why do you feel like your peaceful effort can actually make a difference that, again, changes the full equation?
That's a big question. I mean, the first thing to say is that the Palestine Solidarity Movement is growing day on day. This is probably the largest and most engaged that the Palestine Solidarity Movement has been in the history of Palestine. And it will continue to grow as people educate themselves, as they recognize that there is a profound accountability and justice deficit, and as the depths of Israel's violence become ever clearer. I wouldn't view the impact of the Sumud Flotilla in isolation. There are several dimensions here. The material humanitarian assistance that the boats are collectively carrying is not enough to alleviate even a small proportion of immediate humanitarian needs in Gaza, which are overwhelming. We're talking about more than 1,000 trucks that are needed to enter Gaza in a single day, simply to stave off a deepening humanitarian crisis at this moment in time. But what we are trying to do, as has already been mentioned, is to expose the failure of states that have failed to uphold their political and legal obligations. And thus it's fallen to citizens of the world, if I can call us that, who recognize that we all bear a collective responsibility to prevent the commission of atrocity crimes, to prevent genocide, and to expose those who are committing genocide. And I think that this movement, this networked global movement, in solidarity with the Palestinian people and the Palestinian struggle, will, together with the various different strategies that are employed, the flotilla movement, the protests outside the arms fair in London, street protests the world over, targeted actions against Israeli arms companies, growing calls for and the enactment of arms embargoes against Israel, a growing and flourishing boycott, divestment and sanctions movement. All of these things together have the potential to bring us a step closer to accountability and justice.
Yeah. Jehan, ordinary people can stand up, but without real power behind them, they can also be rather easily ignored and then actually forgotten. So will the international community effectively only really bend when they see an economic opportunity in it? Is that the part that's missing here?
It's very hard to pinpoint why the world has been able to tolerate what's been happening. To me, as a Palestinian from Gaza, it's one of the questions that keep on, swirling in my mind again and again and again. I mean, it's been 2 years of this, and recently we've seen Israel going after now in Gaza City the high-rise buildings. So anything that hasn't been destroyed before is now being in front of the world completely raised as a class. So all of the high-rises are being demolished, not one or two that they might argue are being used for whatever purposes that they might claim. Everything is being raised as a class. So I'm not a lawyer, but there's distinction and proportionality right there and then before you being violated, and no one's doing anything. And we've spoken about consequences before, and I think that the greatest threat actually to this mission is that sense of impunity. A mission this size always carries hope, as I said, but the worrying backdrop to all of this is Netanyahu's current posture. He feels like he has nothing to lose. He's already wanted by the ICC. Israel has already been accused of genocide, but no one has actually done anything. The states haven't actually held them accountable. So he's doubling down. He's accelerating the war crimes in Gaza. He's trying to cement all of these irreversible facts on the ground and hoping by then, the world's outrage might come too late. And he'll have scored points domestically and kept himself politically going. And with the protection, of course, and the backing of the United States. And the world is not doing anything really, like serious action by world governments to stop this. Yeah.
Jehan, let me ask you something, personally. As a Gazan yourself, how much does it mean to you to see people like James and those 150 others, and people like Ofer as well, taking the risks that they take to try to bring the attention to Gaza, to try to make the real change? And especially when I cast my mind back to the Mavi Marmara and how the Israeli forces stormed that aid ship and those 9 volunteers that just were killed in cold blood. How much does it mean to you to see people make those efforts?
I think it is one of the only things that give me hope. I mean, we've seen the sheer size of the mobilization in general over the past 2 years across the world, the demonstrations that have been nonstop. In the UK here, it's basically weekly demonstrations. There is this kind of sense by the people, and I'm not talking about governments here, by the people that they recognize what is happening. They recognize there is a genocide. They recognize that this just cannot go on. It is unsustainable. It's not comprehensible for the world to let this happen. And the world has said before, never again. And yet it keeps happening again and again. So one of the only things that give me hope as I see Gaza being completely demolished, as I see that our people are being obliterated essentially, is the fact that people still have hearts. People are still trying to do good, and as much as they can. I mean, this flotilla is one of the things that people, it's what else can they do apart from try to call on their governments, which is what they have done through the demonstration. So now they're actually taking concrete action to break the blockade, to show the governments, what, this is your job, this is what you should be doing, but if you don't, we will do it. We will do it. And it's now on us, on everyone, and on the media in particular. I want to call out the mainstream media in particular. You need to zoom in on this effort. You need to at least shield, because as you said, Mavi Marmara was attacked before. We've seen people were killed trying to do good, trying to bring humanitarian aid. So it's on us, it's on the media to spotlight what's happening, spotlight the mission, and as I said, hopefully shield them through this visibility and apply pressure on the Israeli government and the governments of the world.
Yeah. Ofer, will any Israelis, do you think, be looking at this and saying, wow, people from 44 countries potentially risking their lives to show solidarity and deliver aid to Gaza, maybe we should step up pressure on our government to at least help humanitarian efforts?
Well, I think that you can already see a shift in the Israeli public discourse. I mean, it's much too little and much too late, but still better than never. you can see the shift throughout the protest that goes on for 2 years and more. So basically, the protest has been against the government and against what they call war, although in my view, there's no war in Gaza, but genocide, and those obviously are not the same. But you can see that even in the beginning, we were in the midst of this protest, we were a tiny minority. Now you can see that we grow stronger and wider. I cannot say, unfortunately, that we are the majority, but we are not a tiny minority anymore. In the protest, for instance, every weekend, and sometimes in the middle of the week too, we stand with pictures of children from Gaza who were killed by Israel. And even in the beginning, where there were just few dozens with those pictures, and we faced violence even sometimes and resentment from other protesters, now you can see across the country no less than thousands of people with the pictures of Gazan children. And it does get stronger. You can see the shift. Yeah. You can see and hear people who shut up until now begin again. It's too little and too late, but better than never. You can see journalists, artists, even ex-generals speak against the ethnic cleansing and genocide. So you can see a shift. And obviously, we must do whatever we can in order to strengthen this change and to reach a majority. Yeah. There are many endeavors within Israel that we in the Democratic Front are part of it, sometimes even the initiators of those endeavors. And I must say that keeps me hopeful, indeed.
Okay. That will have to be the final word for this edition of the Newsmakers. I'd like to thank all three of my panelists sincerely so much for being with me, and our viewers for joining us as well. Remember, you can follow us on social media, and do be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. I'm Andrea Sankey. We'll see you next time.